not crazy,
I
but like
refrain
we all
from
have our
using the C
mental.
word because people ask, like, "Am I crazy?" I'm like, "Well, I don't want to use the C word, but
Yeah.
you may have some stuff going on." But there were some people who came in. So one example in the hospital, there was a 5-year-old girl. She looked like Dora the Explorer. She was so cute, and I was like, "What are you in here for?" She was like, "Well, yeah, I tried to stab my uncle," and I'm like, "Why?" But when she told me what happened, what her uncle had did to her, I was like, "You know what? Understandable." But to be in that position as a young girl needing to defend herself because her uncle was just violating her rights, but she's the one in this hospital. I was like, dang, so you just never know. And then another side is I worked with those who were, it's the psychiatric intensive care unit. And they're, those who are schizophrenic, who are exhibiting those, hallucinations and paranoia. They were so much fun. Let me tell you, working with them, loved hanging out with them. I would go in there and do group sessions, and I'd ask people, how do we talk about boundaries? How we do these things? And I don't know if they're hearing other stuff, but they look like they were paying attention. But I noticed that when they're exhibiting certain symptoms, like one patient in particular, he would respond, but his tone was how we're talking now. Hey, how you doing? Whatever. But the
Chilling.
words didn't match the tone. So if I said, hey, so and so, how are you feeling today? He was like, in the Beetlejuice around the corner, I felt that the beer guns was gonna fly the coop, and I'm like,
You like, oh really?
so I'm like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. So I was like, I don't know where these other words came from, but the tone was communicating that he was okay. But it was interesting to work with those who just had all levels of stuff going on.
So
Just
did you see them being people that would could be helped and be like back into society on some general basis, or is it where they needed to be? Like, so I have a pair of twin cousins, Brian and Alan. They were literally like, nobody understood that they were schizophrenic when we were younger. It'd be like, because they were super. I mean, I'm talking about two fly dudes in high school, played football.
yeah,
They went to Howard.
yeah.
They pledged fraternity, and then like all of a sudden at 2021, they both
Mm,
just dropped out and went to the Navy for no reason, and just went to the
mm,
Navy. And the thing that was their saving grace was them going to the Navy actually saved them, because
really?
the Navy didn't do no psycho evaluation on someone. They ended up and being diagnosed with schizophrenia. The government had to take care of them because
Oh, really? They
they
found out
were in the
after they got.
military.
Oh, wow.
So one of them is totally committed
Yeah.
because he won't take any pills or anything.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is in jail now because he was taking pills and being fine, but it was like weird hanging out with him. And
Mm-hmm.
then he supposedly raped a girl randomly one night,
Oh,
maybe this around 2008,
mm,
2009 in Pennsylvania, but he lived in
mm,
California. So it was like,
mm. What's going
yeah,
on
yeah. Like, why was you in Pennsylvania? Like,
with schizophrenia? And then also if there's other conditions going on. So schizophrenia, and then there, like bipolar one. So where you have like these highs and lows, and you just up and do things. So with bipolar one, I feel that that with medication and understanding what's going on can be managed in a different way. But when you have schizophrenia, like you're hearing things and seeing things and feeling things that is so real to you. So to
mm,
be in Pennsylvania when you live in another place, something happened and you're just there. Something told you, you heard something, you believe something, and you end up in these situations. And when I work with those who had early onset schizophrenia, just understanding like what goes on. Like I would ask them specifically, so whenever you hear a voice, let me know. And a couple of the patients would say, okay, I heard you just tell me that I was, a good for nothing so and so. I'm like,
wow,
just they're like, yeah. I was like, do you know that I didn't say that? And they're like, I'm not sure.
wow.
Yeah. I've been around some patients where I had to actually, well, clients where I had to go in their homes and not knowing when something was gonna go off, when they were gonna exhibit these things. So I've been in some, serious situations with people trying to offer help and see what's going on. But I had this curiosity to know, what is it like for you? What is it like to feel that spiders are coming out of your skin?
So is it true that it is on, like, you can't, like, people will be normal until like a certain age and then they're just like a
Yeah,
switch flips?
yeah, yeah.
And
So
it's so interesting. What, like, people used to like one of my homeboys from high school. He went down to school in Florida, and then like one night they was hanging out in Miami, and like he just started his schizophrenia. But the people were then, now I understand. But then they were like, man, he had some bad weed. That was that's what everybody said for years. You know what I'm saying? But now being understanding and reading about it, you like, oh no, he started his schizophrenia then. Like that's when he was, because he had some bad weed and he was never the same. Like,
yes,
I doubt that. Like,
I had a relationship with someone and their stuff exhibited around that time, and it was possibly attributed to the weed. And I was like, well, you know, if other people had partaken and they didn't have these symptoms,
right.
What's really going on, and then to find out that that's what was going on. It's usually around their early 20s when this takes
okay, so that is true. It's early. It's more prevalent in men too, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Is there a reason why that is, or
that I'm not sure? I don't know if that's due with hormone makeup or anything like that, but men exhibit this, and then if it's women, because I did work with women who had these symptoms as well. I don't know if they're able to hide it differently or presents differently. I'm not sure. And then you have to think about, the research was done on a certain population. So to know how things go, like even with like autism, women, females having those symptoms, they weren't really recognized as well. There was no research to support how it comes about in women. Yeah.
So then after the hospital, you end up going into the healthcare field.
Yeah, I worked for a large insurance company, and I wanted to be on the business side of things. So I started off as a social worker there, working member-facing, people who had, chronic illnesses, so diabetes mainly, those who had chronic pain, those who were dealing with, cancer diagnosis. So being there to support them, provide resources, that kind of information, visiting their house, seeing what's going on. And then I moved to the business side where I wanted to learn project management and do some other things, just trying to pull all my stuff together. I have this MBA, I have this license, clinical license. Let me put all this together. And after a while, I was like, you know what? I'm still seeing clients on the side. Like I've had a private practice part-time since 2017.
So what kind of people are you seeing on the side? Like what are they're just general, is this general therapy or is it?
Yeah, it's general therapy. I see clients from age 12, depending on maturity, on up. So
what is the most common problem you see in like just the regular
people thinking that their life was going to turn out one way and it isn't, and they don't know what to do now? Across the board, just I thought it was supposed to be this, and I was handling things, and I don't know why I'm not able to do that now.
Wow. So it's the I guess as I call it the boogeyman, like not knowing of like, wow, like I'm here now.
Right,
I thought I was going to be in Boomerang with the shoulder pads on.
And now this not working out. So what do I do now? No one told me. And then the quarter life crisis happens. So you hit 30 and you're just like, oh, I'm not doing what I thought I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be married with kids and do this and travel and have all this money and make 6 figures by 30. And no one was telling them what to do at 31, 32. Like your life is not over. And if you didn't accomplish these things by 30, doesn't mean your life is over, that you haven't been successful, that you can't be successful.
So it's more that personal reflection that they're having.
Definitely. And not having the luxury of being able to learn yourself. I tell clients all the time, why not be an expert in you? And I hope that when they come to me that they have a chance to have that space. I tell them, it's a luxury to be able to sit down for an hour with someone and just really talk about you and learn you and put connections together that you may just have overlooked or assumed that you could just get by, and it weighs on you, and it plays out in depression, it plays out in anxiety about what's to come, feeling regrets about things, feeling like you're not, the comparison syndrome, so feeling that you're not up to par with others around you. And I tell my clients, I'm like, no one has to figure it out.
Yeah, zero. That's what my therapist says to me. Her main thing is, like, she's always telling me, like, make sure that you keep this going in this mental side, because you would make rash decisions just because it's like, oh, you know what? Oh, I'm just scared about all this. I'm just going, now I'm gonna move to Colorado and become a lumberjack.
Right. Like this is what I should do. And you're like, wait, so helping clients, figure out what they really want and what does it mean when they respond a certain way to things. So I help them go through like a response cycle. So an event happens and there's that immediate response to it. So how do we slow it down and kind of process and work through what happens after that event? How did you feel? What did you do? How did you feel after you did that? And then what's keeping you going back through that cycle? So
have you had a client where they were like, they're not gonna do none of this shit. Like they just I mean, I don't even know why you even paying for this. You're not trying to do no work.
I I have some
just wanna
clients, like,
talk.
they come back, they're like, I didn't do my homework. I'm like, well, we're gonna do it now. But I tell them that, nothing against you if you do it or you don't. It still tells me something if they don't. But other clients, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they just want to talk to someone. Either way, I'm gonna be intentional about what I'm doing. I'm here to work.
Right.
So, you're paying me, this is your space. I'm gonna be intentional about, what I'm asking, what I'm doing. I've had clients who are like, I don't have anything to talk about. And I'm like, well, I do. Let's talk about this. You mentioned this 3 weeks ago. Let's bring it back. And they're like, oh. I was like, I came here to work.
So you haven't had a client who's like, I can't work with them.
I've had clients where I was like, I don't know how long I'll be able to work with them. But then something happens, a question is asked, or they feel comfortable with me and they're like, hey, I want to talk about this. I'm like, let's go for it. And then we've been able to keep working with each other. A lot of my clients I've had for at least a year.
Okay. Because my therapist, she says that she will drop a client if they, okay, y'all know these spectrums or whatever, like was it type 1, 2, and 3 or something? Or like with like NPD and like sociopathy, and she was like, if she sees anyone displaying a lot of those, she'll like drop them.
Yeah.
Or refer them to someone else, because she's like, she doesn't want to take on the energy of someone just being there just being there and like to act like it.
There's some diagnoses that will definitely be a challenge. So those who have borderline personality disorder,
right,
that can be a challenge. And I've worked with several, and I've come to a way to work with them that they may not have recognized before. I had a client and they're like, I already did the book for dialectical behavioral therapy. She's like, I already worked through that book. I'm like, you're not supposed to work it by yourself.
They was working on the book on their own. Just
I was like, I appreciate your enthusiasm.
That's hilarious.
That's not how you're supposed to do it. You understand?
Wow.
So there's some, and then people on their own, they'll kind of fall off and come. I've had clients fall off and they're like, hey, I worked with you a year ago. I'd like to come back. And I'm like, okay, but are you ready to work? What's going on? So I kind of keep things open, and people want to come back and there's room in the practice. I'm accepting clients now.
So yeah, you talked about before we went on that you're switching off to do it as a full-time thing potentially.
And I haven't told my company yet. So
oh well, then hold on, I'll bleep that out on the back end.
They're gonna find out, but I'm looking to do that full time. Like I said, I've been working this practice part time with the jobs that I had. So I would see about 10 to 12 clients a week on top of working 40 hours a week. And over the years, it's like I really enjoy this so much more. So much more, and I want to keep doing this and making that change over. So I have my little IG up for my practice. My practice is Accedence Counseling. And
so how do they been doing it? Spell it for that people can follow it.
Oh, Accedence. It's ACCEDENCE Counseling. So accedencecounseling.com. It's Accedence Counseling on Instagram. And Accede has a meaning, for me, and people call it accidents. It's not pronounced accident. So to exceed is to, move to the next level, to have, integrity in the moves that you do. So I have like the definitions that really spoke to me, why I named my practice that on my IG page. So I want people to come in, feel comfortable. I tell my clients I am casual but intentional. Like how we're having a conversation now. That's how I talk to my clients. Like I may have a head wrap on when they see me online. I'm chilling, I'm like, I'm gonna go work after that. And they're like, oh, I talked about working out. Like I'm doing these things too. I'm a real person, but I am here to make sure that whatever time you spend with me, you feel that you're moving towards your goals.
So with that, going into that, so you're doing more online. Was that before COVID? Were you doing a lot more online, or is it because of COVID?
Well, COVID, yeah, and this made it a little bit easier, so I can see clients from all over Texas now, which is great.
So is it? Hold on, that's a good question. So you couldn't take someone from another state then? Is that because
I'm not licensed? I want to get licensed in other states, so I'm looking